Hi, I'm Wren. I used my grandmother's inheritance to buy a half-acre of land nobody wanted, instead of handing it over to my brother's failing business. And for that, my family decided I was the villain. But here's the part they didn't count on. I kept every receipt, every message, every lie, and it came apart in front of everyone. Before we get into it, where are you listening from right now? Morning commute? Late night scroll? Drop it in the comments. You're about to hear the story my family prayed would stay quiet. The land wasn't much to look at. A narrow half-acre strip on the edge of Clarksville, Tennessee, wedged between an overgrown fence line and a gravel road that dead-ended into nothing. The county had listed it for back taxes, $1,200 total. I bought it on a Tuesday afternoon, alone, sitting in my car in the parking lot of a Walgreens, clicking through the county treasurer's website on my phone. I didn't tell anyone. That was the first mistake, according to my family. The second mistake was using Grandma Ruth's money to do it. She had passed 8 months before, quietly, in the same house she'd lived in since 1979. She left each of her grandchildren a specific amount in her will. No ambiguity, no room for interpretation. Mine was $4,800. My brother Colt got his own separate amount. The money was meant to be ours individually. She had said so out loud at her kitchen table 2 summers before she died, looking directly at me over her sweet tea. "That's yours, baby. Don't let anyone talk you out of it." I didn't think I needed that warning. I was wrong. The dinner where everything cracked open happened on a Sunday in March. My mom had made pot roast, which she only did when she wanted the atmosphere to feel warm while she delivered something cold. My dad sat at the head of the table cutting his meat with the focused energy of a man who had already decided how the evening would go. My brother Colt was across from me, his girlfriend Priya beside him, both of them wearing the particular expression of people who have already rehearsed this conversation without you. Dad set down his fork. "We need to talk about Colt's situation." Colt had started a mobile auto detailing business 18 months earlier. The concept was fine. The execution had been consistently disastrous. Wrong insurance coverage, a van with a transmission problem he'd ignored for 6 months, a rotating cast of unreliable part-time helpers, and a booking system that existed only in his head. He'd already borrowed $3,000 from my parents. That was apparently not enough. "He needs capital to stabilize," my dad said, in the tone he used when he'd looked something up online and was now an authority on it. A real investment, enough to get the van fixed, get the software, run some ads. I waited. Mom looked at me. "We were thinking about Grandma Ruth's money." And there it was. "That money was left to me," I said, keeping my voice even, specifically, by name. "It's family money," Colt said. Not cruelly, he actually seemed to believe it. Grandma Ruth didn't see it that way. Priya reached over and touched Colt's arm, a practiced gesture of solidarity. "We just think it would mean so much more invested in something real, something that grows." "I already used it," I said. The table went quiet. My dad's jaw tightened. My mom blinked slowly. "Used it for what?" Colt asked. "I bought land." The silence stretched out for a long, strange moment. Then my mother laughed, not warmly. A short, clipped sound that meant she found something embarrassing rather than funny. "You bought land," she said. "Half an acre, outside Clarksville. Back tax sale. Wren." My dad said my name like it was a diagnosis. "That's not an investment, that's a field." "It's mine," I said. "That's the investment." Colt leaned back in his chair. "So you spent Grandma's money on a field instead of helping your own brother?" "Grandma's money was my money, Colt. She said so." "She said a lot of things." He shrugged. "She also said she wanted us to take care of each other." That one landed, and he knew it. Not because it was true. Grandma Ruth had been fiercely independent and deeply suspicious of people who leaned too hard on each other, but because he'd framed it well. He made me the selfish one in one sentence. Mom folded her napkin and placed it beside her plate with the precision of someone ending a conversation. "You've always done exactly what you wanted, Wren. This is just the latest version of that." I didn't argue after that. There wasn't a point. The case had already been made in whatever room they'd all been in before I arrived. By the time I got home that night, I had been removed from the family group text. No explanation, no argument, just suddenly absent. I found out because my cousin mentioned it, texting me separately, "Hey, did something happen? You're not in the chat anymore." I screenshot it. Not for any particular reason at the time, just because it felt like something I should hold on to. I want to pause here and tell you something that took me years to understand, because maybe you'll recognize it too. My family never raised their voices at me. They were never dramatic. What they did was quieter. And because of that, it took me a long time to name it. Growing up, I was the one who was expected to be easy. My brother struggled in school, so he got tutors and patience and extra time. I got good grades without much effort, which meant my parents concluded I didn't need anything. I won a regional writing competition in 8th grade. My dad said that's nice and asked if I'd finish the dishes. Colt failed his driver's test twice and got a truck for his 16th birthday because my dad wanted to reward his persistence. I borrowed my mother's car for 2 years because there was never a right moment to address it. None of it was announced. None of it was mean in any way I could point to. It was just a slow, consistent pattern of deciding that I was fine, that I could handle it, that my needs were flexible in a way that Colt's weren't. I thought if I just made myself useful enough, visible enough, they'd eventually see me as something more than the one who didn't need much. That never happened. 2 weeks after the dinner, I got a voicemail from my mom. I was sitting on the tailgate of my truck, out by the land, eating a sandwich and watching a red-tailed hawk circle something in the scrub brush. The voicemail notification sat on my screen for a full minute before I played it. Her voice was careful, warm in the way that meant it was performing warmth. "Wren, honey, I've been thinking about you. I know things got tense. Your father and we worry about Colt. He's trying so hard, and sometimes I think you don't see that. You've always been the capable one, the independent one. That's a gift, really. But sometimes being capable means carrying a little more, you know? That's not a criticism. It's just, I know you can handle this. I just wish you'd think about what it means to be part of a family." I sat with that for a while. The capable one. I had heard that my entire life. Teachers said it. My parents said it. Aunts at Christmas. Capability, it turned out, was the reason no one ever asked if I was okay. If you are capable, you are a resource. You do not get to also be a person who needs something. I didn't return the call. 3 weeks later, my brother's girlfriend called me directly. Priya had always been pleasant to my face. Careful. A little guarded, but pleasant. On the phone, she sounded strained, like she was managing several things at once. "I just want you to know," she said, "that Colt is really hurt. He sees this as you choosing a piece of dirt over your own family." "It wasn't his money," I said. "I know that's how you see it. It's how the will saw it." "Wren," she exhaled. "Your grandmother loved all of you. I just think she'd want you to be there for each other." I noticed she didn't say anything about Colt being there for me. No one ever did. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, not doing anything in particular. There was a water stain on the ceiling above my refrigerator that I'd been meaning to get checked for months. I stared at it. I thought about all the times I had shown up for Colt, picked him up at 2 a.m. when his car broke down, helped him draft emails to clients he'd accidentally overcharged, sat in the parking lot of his storage unit helping him reorganize his equipment for 3 hours one August afternoon. He hadn't thanked me for any of that. Not because he was cruel, but because it hadn't registered as something that required thanks. That was just Wren being Wren. I didn't regret any of it exactly. I just finally saw it clearly. The knock at my door came on a Friday, about a month after the dinner. I was in the middle of a project, laptop open, coffee getting cold beside me. I glanced through the peephole and my stomach dropped. It was Colt. He was in his work clothes, navy polo with the business logo, boots still dirty from a job. He looked tired, and that part was probably real. When I opened the door, he did the thing he always did when he needed something. Smiled like we were on normal terms, like no time had passed. "Hey," he said, "can I come in?" I stood in the doorway. "What's going on?" "Van's fully down. I had to cancel 4 jobs this week. I've got a wedding party booking in 3 weeks that I cannot lose." He rubbed the back of his neck. I just need to get the transmission rebuilt. The shop quoted me $20. 200. Okay. I don't have it. I waited. I know things have been weird, he said. I'm not trying to rehash all that. You're my sister. I don't know who else to ask. That part was probably true too. Colt wasn't calculating the way Priya was. He operated on a simpler frequency: need, ask, receive. He'd been taught that's how family worked. And to be fair, it had always worked that way for him. Colt, I said, you and Mom and Dad kicked me out of the family group chat for buying land with my own money. He blinked. I didn't do that. You didn't push back on it either. He looked at the porch railing. I know. That was messed up. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was closer than I expected, and that right there was how he got in the door. Not manipulation, exactly, just the familiar gravity of people you've loved your whole life. You let them in, because turning away feels like something that can't be undone. You can sleep on the couch tonight, I said. We're not talking about money. He nodded. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. He wasn't on my couch for 12 hours before the first flag went up. I woke up around 7 to the sound of a phone call coming through on speaker. Not loudly, but the walls in my apartment are thin. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but I caught pieces. No, she's not. Yeah, I'm here. She doesn't know yet. I lay there for a minute. Then I got up, made coffee, and went about my morning like I hadn't heard anything. Colt came into the kitchen bright-eyed and slightly overdoing the casual. He poured himself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter. Hey, you mind if I make a few calls from here today? Workshop's backed up. Sure, I said. I've got work to do, so. He nodded, and that was that. By noon, I had found it. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I'd pulled up a Facebook group for our extended family just to see if there was an event I'd missed. And there, posted 2 days earlier in a fundraising group my aunt moderated, was a campaign titled Help Our Family Get Back on Their Feet. The cover photo was a picture of Colt and Priya, looking tired and earnest. The text described a family crisis, van breakdown, lost bookings, a sister who had come into some money and chosen not to help during a difficult time. That last part wasn't phrased as an accusation. It didn't need to be. The implication was clear. I had the money. I chose not to help. Now they needed the community. The campaign had raised $3,400 in 2 days. My aunt had shared it. 3 cousins had donated. There were comments like family first and sending prayers and support your way. My name wasn't in it. But anyone who knew us would know exactly who the sister was. I read it twice. Then I closed the browser and sat very still. Colt was in my living room. He had helped put this together, or at least known it existed, while sleeping on my couch. I picked up my phone and texted my oldest friend, Laurel. She'd been a paralegal for 4 years, not an attorney. But she knew enough to point me in the right direction, and she didn't panic. I forwarded her the link and typed, "Is any of this actionable?" Her response came back in 10 minutes. Maybe. Depends on how they framed the ask and whether the description of you is false enough to constitute defamation. Screenshot everything. Don't confront yet. I'll make some calls Monday. I screenshotted every slide, every comment, every share. I noted the timestamps. Then I put my phone face down and went back to work because there was nothing else to do right then, and falling apart would not help me. When Colt came to the kitchen for a snack around 2, I handed him his jacket. "You should go," I said. He looked surprised. "Everything okay?" "I need the space. Take care, Colt." He stood there for a second, reading something in my face, and then nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "Yeah." He picked up his bag from the corner, and I noticed he didn't argue, which meant some part of him already knew. The door closed behind him. I sat down on the floor. Not dramatically, just because the couch felt too far, and stared at my front window for a long time. Outside, someone was mowing a lawn 3 buildings over. The sound of it was perfectly ordinary. I concentrated on that. What my family had never understood was that I document things. Not obsessively. I'm not built that way. But I'm a careful person by nature, and I keep records. Texts I thought might matter. Emails I filed instead of deleted. The voicemail from my mother was still in my phone. I had screenshots of being removed from the group chat. I had the original will, scanned and saved in 2 places. By Sunday night, I had a folder with everything organized by date. Laurel called me Sunday evening. She'd talked to a friend who did civil work. "Okay," she said, "here's where you are. They didn't name you explicitly, so defamation is a longer road. But, and this is interesting, if anyone in the campaign made specific false statements about your financial situation or your conduct that can be demonstrated as false, you have options. Also, if Colt is soliciting money for his business while describing it as a personal family crisis, there's a potential misrepresentation issue with the platform's charity policies." He did describe it as a crisis. Write that down exactly how you remember it, and keep watching the campaign. 2 days later, the campaign hit $6,100. And then it hit something else. A comment appeared from someone I didn't recognize. A friend of my cousin's, apparently, that said, "Didn't the sister get an inheritance? Why didn't she just help? Seems selfish." Within an hour, my aunt had liked it. My mother had replied, "Some people make choices that are hard for the rest of us to understand." I stared at that response for a long time. It wasn't a lie, exactly. It was precision crafted to sound like sadness while functioning as an accusation. My mother was very good at that. She'd had a lifetime of practice. That reply was the thing that settled something in me. Not anger, exactly. Something quieter than that. A kind of resolve. Like the moment you stop hoping a situation will fix itself and start thinking about what you're actually going to do. The family gathering that changed everything was my aunt's birthday. My Aunt Cecile turned 60 in May, and she'd rented out the back room of a restaurant in Nashville for dinner. I hadn't been invited initially, or rather, I'd been conspicuously not mentioned when my cousin texted about logistics. I found out through that same cousin, Maeve, who was quietly horrified by the whole situation and had been feeding me information in small, careful pieces for weeks. "You should come," Maeve said when she called me the Thursday before. "Aunt Cecile wants you there. She told me herself. Does she know what's been going on?" A beat of silence. "She's starting to." I thought about it for a day. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to walk in ready for a fight. But I was going to be present, and I was going to be honest if asked, and I was done making myself smaller to smooth things over. I showed up in a dark green dress and the small pearl earrings my grandmother had given me 2 Christmases before she died. I was early. Aunt Cecile saw me from across the room and came straight over, hugging me hard. "I'm glad you're here," she said, and she meant it. I found a seat at the end of the table, near Maeve, and spent the first part of the evening talking to people I hadn't seen in months. My mother arrived, saw me, and her expression did something complicated before settling back into pleasant. My dad nodded from across the room. Colt sat down without looking at me. It felt, for a moment, like it might just be a dinner. Then Priya stood up. She had apparently prepared remarks, which no one had known about, including, based on Aunt Cecile's expression, the guest of honor. Priya thanked everyone for coming, said a few warm things about Aunt Cecile, and then smoothly pivoted. "I also just want to say," she said, "that as a family you've shown up for us in ways we'll never forget. The support for Colt's business, the fundraiser, it's been overwhelming. Family is everything." She looked around the table. Her gaze passed over me for just a half second, long enough to mean something. "Some people make different choices," she said, "and we have to respect that. We just have to keep choosing love." The table murmured politely. A couple of people nodded. I set down my fork. "Priya." My voice came out calm. "I was a little surprised. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying." She blinked. It was a toast, Wren. A toast that implied I made an unloving choice. I didn't say that. You didn't have to." I looked around the table. "I'm sure most of you have seen the fundraiser. I want to be clear about a few things." I picked up my phone, which I'd had in my jacket pocket. I set it on the table. The money Grandma Ruth left me was designated to me by name in her will. It was mine to use however I chose. I used it to buy land. That's it. What the fundraiser implied, that I withheld help during a family crisis, is not accurate. The table was quiet. My mother opened her mouth. "Mom," I said gently, "I have your voicemail saved. I have the texts. I have screenshots of everything posted publicly. I'm not asking for a debate. I'm just stating what is true." Aunt Cecile, who had been listening from the head of the table with very still attention, spoke. "Wren." Her voice was even. "I want to hear this." "Cecile, this isn't the time," my mother started. "It is, actually." Aunt Cecile looked at my mother. "Because I donated to that fundraiser. I donated $200 to something that told me Wren had money and refused to help. And based on what I'm hearing, that description was not complete." The silence changed quality. My dad said nothing. He was looking at the table. Colt was looking at Priya. Priya was looking at her plate. "I want to be really clear," I said, "that I'm not here to blow up anyone's birthday dinner. I love Aunt Cecile. I came because she asked me to come, but I've spent 2 months being framed as the villain of a story I'm not even in, and I'm done staying quiet about it." Maeve, from beside me, said quietly, "For the record, I told them this would happen." My mother got up and left the table. My dad followed her a moment later. Not angry, just the way he always went, like a loyal shadow. Colt looked at me across the table. His expression was not what I expected. It wasn't defiant, it was tired and a little ashamed, which was worse in its own way. "I didn't write the fundraiser," he said. "I know." And I did know. Priya had written it, that much had been obvious from the phrasing. "But you knew about it?" He didn't answer, which was its own answer. Priya excused herself to the restroom and, as far as I could tell, didn't come back. The rest of the dinner was quieter, but it wasn't ruined. Aunt Cecile had a second glass of wine and told a long story about the time Grandma Ruth had gotten into a dispute with a neighbor over a property line and won. And the table laughed, and Maeve topped off my water glass, and I ate my salmon and felt, for the first time in months, like I was allowed to take up space. Driving home that night, I passed the exit for Clarksville and almost took it, just to see the land in the dark. I didn't, but I thought about it. 3 weeks later, the fundraiser was taken down. I don't know exactly why. Morrill said there had been a review initiated, possibly by someone who flagged it, possibly by the platform's automated system catching inconsistencies between charity claims and the business PayPal used for withdrawals. The money had already been spent. No one mentioned it to me directly. My mother texted me on a Wednesday morning. Not a call, a text. "I think we should get coffee sometime, when you're ready." I sat with that for a long time. It wasn't an apology. It was an opening. The shape of one, anyway. My mother has never in her life said the word sorry to me. Not once that I can remember. And I had a choice to make about whether I was going to keep waiting for something she might not be capable of. I typed back, "Maybe in a few months. I need some time." She read it and didn't respond. I didn't take that as cruelty. I just took it as what it was. My brother texted me the following Sunday. "Hey, can we talk sometime? Not about money." I thought about it for a day. Then I wrote back, "Yeah, we can do that. That conversation hasn't happened yet. I'm not in a hurry. There's something I've learned about time. It doesn't heal things by itself. It just gives you room to decide what you actually want to rebuild and what you're okay leaving behind. The land sits at the end of a gravel road in Clarksville, and it's mine. It's still mostly scrub brush and a stand of cedar trees along the back fence line. There's a spot near the middle where the ground flattens out, and on a clear day you can see the ridge to the east. I've been out there 6 times now. I bring coffee in a thermos, and I sit on a camp chair, and I look at what I own, which is not impressive to anyone who doesn't understand why it matters. Grandma Ruth understood. She left me the money because she knew I would use it to make something that belonged to me, not to the family. Not to Colt's business plan or my parents' version of how things should go. To me. Some Saturdays Maeve drives out with me. We don't talk much. We drink bad thermos coffee and watch whatever bird is working the tree line, and that's enough. Last weekend, I looked up what it would take to put a small structure out there. Not a house, not yet. Something simple, a shed with a covered porch. Somewhere to sit when the weather's good. I got 3 quotes. The cheapest was $400. I don't have that yet, but I'm not in a hurry. I have the land. The land isn't going anywhere. Before I go, I want to say something to you, because I mean it, and I know some of you will hear it. Being capable is not the same as not needing anything. Being independent is not the same as being okay with being left out. And family, the word, the idea, the thing people wield like a trump card when they want something from you, does not automatically mean love. Sometimes it just means familiar. And familiar can become a trap so slowly you don't even notice the door closing. Grandma Ruth sat across a kitchen table from me and said, "That's yours, baby. Don't let anyone talk you out of it." I almost did. I almost handed it over, not because it was the right thing, but because the silence and the missing texts and the dinner table pressure had done their job, and I had spent so many years trying to earn a place at a table that was never going to move over for me. I'm done earning it. I built my own table. It's a half-acre of scrub brush in Tennessee, and it doesn't look like much, but the deed is in my name, and no one can reframe that. Have you ever had to choose between keeping something for yourself and meeting your family's expectations? I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. And if you've been carrying something like this for a while, I hope this gave you something. Even just a little bit of company for the ride. If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. New episodes every week, and I'm glad you're here. I've thought a lot about why it all unraveled the way it did. Not in a bitter way, more the way you think about a storm after it passes, trying to understand the pressure systems that built it, the thing about what Priya did, what Colt allowed, what my parents quietly endorsed. None of it came from nowhere. It came from years of a family system that had assigned each of us a role and expected us to stay in it. Colt was the one who struggled and needed support. I was the one who was fine. Those roles had been rehearsed so many times they felt like facts. And when I stepped outside my assigned part, when I kept what was mine and refused to make myself smaller one more time, the whole structure shook. Not because I did something wrong, because I did something unexpected. That's the part people don't talk about enough. Sometimes the thing that breaks a family dynamic isn't cruelty or betrayal. Sometimes it's just one person deciding to stop performing. I think about Grandma Ruth a lot. She was not a soft woman. She was precise and a little stubborn, and she made decisions without apologizing for them. She saved that money over decades, quietly, in the background of a life that required her to be useful and present and often invisible. She left it to me specifically because she understood something about being overlooked, about what it costs, over time, to keep deferring. She wanted me to have something that was simply, cleanly mine. When Colt's girlfriend put up that fundraiser, when my mother liked a comment implying I was selfish, when my dad followed my mom out of a restaurant without a word, every one of those choices had a consequence. Not a punishment handed down by anything outside of themselves, just the natural result of people seeing clearly what kind of behavior they were willing to accept and what they weren't. Maeve saw it. Aunt Cecile saw it. And eventually, I stopped being the only one in the room willing to name it. That's the only justice I believe in. The kind that comes from people finally seeing what was always there. What I've learned, and I mean this plainly, is that intelligence without honesty is just strategy. Colt is not a stupid person. Priya is not a stupid person, but they were dishonest. Not dramatically, not with malice exactly, but in the small calculated ways that accrue over time into something you can't walk back from easily. And the thing about that kind of dishonesty is it always requires more of itself. It builds on itself until someone pulls a thread in public and the whole scene goes. Moral courage is quieter than people think. It's not a speech. It's sitting at your aunt's birthday dinner and deciding not to let a toast rewrite your life without correction. It's keeping records not out of paranoia, but out of respect for your own truth. And endurance, real endurance, is not gritting your teeth through misery. It's choosing over and over to tend to the thing that's yours. The land, the half-acre, The deed with your name on it. You show up for it even when no one else thinks it matters, because you know what it cost and you know what it means. I'm still tending to mine.